stepped into the room, and I knew I was doomed to fall for you. The moment I saw you smile, now everywhere you go, my eyes follow close, and I'm just waiting for the time to be right to tell you how I've loved you for a while. Oh, my heart is going wild. You wear me down.
Hey, if you're watching, I'll be starting pretty soon. Going to continue the stuff I've been doing with the noise function to basically try redo my landscape to be a bit nicer. Well, not nicer, just more efficient, but still nice. There's a bit of, hopefully, niceness about it too.
Your skin touched my skin, and I could feel the breaking of my cold stone.
Anyway,
Was about to begin.
getting on with it very, very soon. Alright, I think we're a go. So let's jump into our Unreal Engine window. Here we are. So, carrying on from where we left off last time, we've got our base noise material that's set on here. We're using an instance at the moment, and there's been a few minor tweaks since the last video. The main one is I've actually converted this function to just accept function inputs, and so it's no longer parameter driven, and then I use the instantiated version on this MF Smart Rock layer to actually pass in the parameters. So let's jump in. So it's pretty much the same that you would have seen last time if you're watching. The only difference is now I'm using these function inputs, which are those ones where you go function input, comes in through like that. Defaults to a vector 3, but I change these all to scalars. I don't think I'm actually pulling in, yeah. So I'm actually using a hard-coded texture for the noise that gets added at the moment, but I can change that later if need be. Probably will, just so I can modify it a bit more and pass it in. And the main reason I've gone this way of doing it is I want to actually just get it so I can reuse this function a few times without having to have it fixed to one particular set of parameters. The only other small addition I've done, I've added this bands here, so you can now specify how many bands come through this generate offset bands. These are a bit different to the normal generated bands. I'm using the offset ones all over. Other than the fact that you can define how many bands it's going to have, which does include doing a fractional amount. If you create a normal generated band, and plug in the same filters, so if I were to pull it in like this, defaulting this to, at the moment that's a 1, and that is a 1 through there too. But what you'll see is it's... Wait. I don't really need to do this. This is just to demonstrate though. So if I just look at the offset band on its own, put it on a square so it's easier to see. If I preview it on this one, it's very different. You can see that. So this one's more streaked, where the offset bands actually go back and forth quite a bit. So they are different, not just in terms of how many bands you get with it, but just different in general. You can see that. Right, so anyway, we're not using that other one. One thing I would like to be able to do, to not delete that one stays. Keep that there. One thing I do want to add to this one is the ability to spit out an alpha as well while we're at it. So ideally I'd like that to be independent, but we'll see. I don't want to have to call the function more than I need to. So what would be handy is to say, maybe earlier in the piece, work out where it's nice enough or close enough. So that's not too bad. But to be honest, we don't really need it to follow the same path. Anyway, so at the moment I've got this applied on here. You can see, you know, there's nothing too over the top with it. But what I've done, I've created this new bass noise material, which is just, if I pull that across, just plugging in all the parameters so I can redefine it on an instance. And then I've got my rock layer, which I'm now using on this smart landscape. So rock layer is plugged in there. Got a very basic run through here, so it's got shoe textures it's taking in. I've got a placeholder. Actually, I don't know if I know that they are. I've got a placeholder for other cool rock textures, so at the moment I'm just using these two. I'm probably not going to use more than two, to be honest. Got my scale, so this is a very basic version of the distance blend which I had previously. I'm just fixing it to 64 as the scale. And then I'm using my noise layer to do alert back and forth. So if I preview this, you'll see, hard to see it there actually because it's just so big, and that could be this texture actually. This texture is really not that great, is it? Let's go shared wrap. Let's get some more efficiency there. I am overriding that though. That's a bit why. Right, I'm just going to reset those so I can actually see what that looks like. So gosh, that's not quite so nice, but that could be the UVs. So if I take the UV out, yeah, that's the UV. So it's because it's just zooming in a bit. They're not hugely detailed textures, so I'm going to just override what we're seeing there. So just doing the search, coming through, plug that in, just so we're consistent. Right, and the other thing it's doing is I'm using the lerp multiple float 3 to blend back and forth between these colors. So let's first up, we'll just override that and just have a look what that looks like. That's going to... Okay, we're not going to do that because if I do that, it's going to drop these other filters I've got, sorry, parameters I've got. Yeah, so on the material instance for this new landscape one, which looks like this. Well, not that, but once it loads up, there we go. So it looks like this. can see it's actually quite subtle here. Do I have the right one? I'm not sure. I feel like this was stronger before. That's right, so that's just going back and forth between the two. What I might need to do is just open up this landscape. I might have the colours a bit too subtle. In fact, this one doesn't seem to have the colours there. I should have our blend colours showing, to be honest. There they are. Now it's rebuilding. Combining shaders 30, 10, bam. So, got our cool streaking all over the place. Lots of layers, so many layers. Now, this landscape's not a great one. I haven't really optimized it at all. Haven't. It's very triangly. What I like about the way that this is done now, especially because it's using, where's this blend? Angles. So we've got my incline and my maximum. Let's just change those. It's all trial and error, to be honest, with this. I might just put it back to the 07 because I'm not sure why I had it. You can see it's meant to just sort of define when that cuts in, when the start cuts. What I'm able to do now though, if I go to my flatten layer or flatten tool, ramp it up a little bit, I can cut in there and I get my light texture where I need it. I can cut lower, I can get my blue, cut in to get red. I can actually control when I'm designing the landscape later. We get our 3-ish layers there. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, at the moment we're not actually overriding any of the other settings, so I think it's got whatever the default metallic is, default specularity. So, should we have a look at that? I guess, probably. Yeah, you can see that's just going up and down here and there. So first things first, this is just doing colour. I'm not sure why that one's there. Okay, it's rebuilding. And in fact that rock layer is why I want to get this to also bring out something like just an alpha blend, so I can modify how much of an effect these are having when it's multiplying it. So I'd probably either spit out an extra alpha mask, that's probably the smart way, and then throw it into a multiply as well, but probably multiply there. So if I go, ooh, something just happened. Hello, new follower. Anyway, right, so what I was going to do is just, oh no, we do have some basic roughness and spec happening there. No normals at the moment, but you would do the same sort of process. and I've got my placeholder there for when I later do an extra material function for a dirt layer, so I can start doing actual landscape layers. Alright, I think what would work best now is to get something happening with the base noise to do an alpha mask. So we want function output, not an input, an output. We're going to do clamps again. So we've got noise alpha in. Now, of course, when I eventually do save this, actually no, it won't break anything because I'm not actually using this alpha mask yet. Now to work out where to intercept it. So if we go back further, I like the idea that it's not necessarily following exactly what the rest is doing. So I'll create just a bit more variation. So if I'm previewing here, that's what our real blend is. That's a bit more subtle. And it's not, I don't want it to actually coincide, like directly match what we've got. So let's just jump in. Right, so there's the add version there, so before we actually start doing the offset. That's good, because then it still takes into account the divisor. Alright, let's bring it back. So it's different. Alright, so plug into the rock layer. No. Let's make some more parameters and plug those in too. I like the idea that it's never quite full. So those are some of my go-tos. I mean, I could have changed that later on the instance, and I still can. So we'll do a multiply. We'll plug it in through there. And we're only using it on the rock layer side. Let's see, once that compiles. Now I think one of the things I've got happening here is I've actually set the cut in so it's not actually blending as much on the flat planes. Check that. Alright, I'll just jump back in. So go to my instance. That's our noise. Alpha, no, it's our min max. Is that what works? I'm not sure. That's not really right, is it? Because what I want to do... No, that's affecting the color. I'm not affecting... So what I need to do is append. That's what I have to do. So it's not that, it's an append. It's because we're looking at... We're on a float 3, we want to turn into a float 4. How's this going to let us do it? Of course not, because that's... Okay. Let's assume that these are a 1. So what I'm just doing here is turning this float 3 into float 4 by an appending. There we go. So we're no longer multiplying at that point, because... Is that going to work? I don't know. Normally with the blend strength, the way I've done it before is multiplying by percentage. We'll see. Bass noise is fine. And what I might do is just change these colors around a little bit just so we can see it a bit better. Do like them, but just for the sake of being able to see what's happening. Greens and purples. Let's get a orange or a red. So there we can see what's happening. If I set this to a 0, we see nothing. So that's doing nothing. Right, so that's wrong. Our bass noise side is fine. That's all good. So it's really down to this one, isn't it? Right, so let's assume that we don't want to do a we don't want to do an append. Are we lerping? No, we're not lerping either, because I don't like this when I have to sort of refer to what I've done previously, but it might be required. So let's assume okay. We might want to color blend or a blend instead, but we'll see. So I'm going to do a 1 minus, which means if the alpha is 0, we're actually at a 1. We're multiplying it by that. Feel free to shout out if you have any ideas. While that's loading, I might just have a look at what I had done previously. Because I did have, especially with the Stratify function before, I did have a blend strength coming through. I'm just going to pull that onto a different window. Alright, there, that's wrong. So I was doing it after the blend. Go to, not grass blend. My dirt layer did do it. That does a bit different. That does it with the just the ground noise, which I will do soon too. The noise mask. That's just a multiply. but we don't have the strength at that point. I think that's just doesn't use a blend amount there, so it was the rock one that I want to look at. Core rock. No, that's definitely not the right spot. Must be in the Stratify after all. We're looking for Stratify blend strength. Not the top blend. Was it affecting at the loop level? There we're looping between back and forth. We're using our first color as the base tint, so going under the presumption that there will be some sort of tint. Multiplying here, no, that's the offset band, that's, God, here's a plane strength. So, that's not going to work, is it? Alright, let's see. Not sure. So we're saying okay, so from here do we multiply not doing an add. Not sure about this. Don't use color blends. We're not really lerping either, because we just want to give it a tint. This is always the fun part where I lose track of what I'm actually doing. So, alright. What have we got here? Set our minimum, let's just ramp it up. Preview that. If our maximum is 1, it should be almost black. Yep. And if we set this to 0, it should be white. Let's have a look at the blend options. We don't want to lighten, it's more of a colour. But we need it happening with an amount too. I mean, lerp is always fun. Let's use the one colour, I think, just for now. Let's do this one because it's... Right, so you can see that happening like that. I set this to... saying the alpha is full. That's not right. We're not meant to be minusing, we'll just... Of course, because we're doing the same thing, aren't we? That's just not taking into account at all. Because it's still happening at half, that's why. Oh, we're actually using one colour too. Honestly, I always use the multiplier, so let's just go with it and see how we can get it to work. It's be 0, that's a 1. It's not an add. It's so not efficient. I don't know, give it a go. Right, so on this one we've got alphas set to 0. That's what we want there. If we set it back to max, that's not doing anything. That's full, so that's cool. They're doing it. Just the minimum is quite low. So it's 6, it's nice. I don't really feel like it's getting stronger in places either though. I pull in the alpha mask instead. How about we add a new I'll pull in the alpha too. Let's go to our smart landscape. Let's temporarily get into this. So it's mostly white, isn't it? So we don't. Really hard to see where that difference is. Let's go lerp. Let's get 3 vectors in there. One for bright pink, one for dark blue, darkish. Let's get the alpha mask in there. And then I just want to do this just to see if we do have it. Let's do it on the emissive color and see how that works. Alright, so you can see everywhere it's pink is where our white is. It's to 0.5. Okay. Put this to 0.9 and 1. There's our blue. The full range is like that, so we're not really getting much variation there. I feel like it's not really cutting it. So that means our alpha mask is just not really quite there. We pop back to it. I mean, it's pretty light there too. So let's add a power node in there. See if that's any better. If it's 1, that's what our default is. Right. On this side it's not, yeah, it shows a bit of difference there. Pull it to 8. And we're definitely getting a lot of variation there now, so let's just set it to 4. 4 seem to be. We really want it sort of half-half, or like that. So in places it gets darker, some gets lighter, but there is that more split between as well. And of course what I'll do is throw that in increase alpha power. Set it to 4. Save that, it'll error because we want it to have an alpha power too. Set to 4. So I usually try to keep it close to whatever my material instance is going to do anyway. Just saves mucking around, but obviously sometimes you want to have it so the preview shows something worthwhile and the instance is different too. So that'll stay at 4. I go back to here. We should see a lot more blue, a bit less pink, but there should be plenty of pink and blue across the whole thing. That preview's not reassuring me though. I think there's some blue there, but what have I got? What's wrong? Something's up with this. Right, so if I set this to 0.5, 0.9, okay. What am I doing wrong here? There's something definitely wrong here. What level is this happening at? We've got the lerp. I mean, part of it could be just the fact that it's a light colour, so let's just go to straight red or blue. And see how that goes. I'm not going to bother putting them into parameters because I won't be keeping those. You could, I mean, I've got another texture material I did that. Okay, so it's all red, all red. I don't see no blue at all. I don't think it's a scale thing, it's just not there. But it's here, so that's weird. Alright, preview the rock layer. Just taking the alpha mask direct. It's not doing anything to it. Why is that pink? Let's do a multiply. So, that's what we're looking like there. Just putting these multipliers in so I can do an intercept to see where we're... Again, that's not quite what we're seeing here though, is it? Here, it's all like this, so what are we? It says it's an alpha mask. It's clamping. I don't think that makes much of a difference. Oh, that could be a factor. Okay. 0, 1, and 4. Is that what we're using as our basis here? Its minimum is set to 0. That's 1. That's 4. Could be some of those other settings though. It's not the bands. Frustrating. Well, so we could be looking at the wrong one. Let's try with our base instead. Maybe it should be happening at the base level. We're not really using this alpha at the moment. I'd imagine we'd maybe feed that back into like a spec mask. Could try to ramp up the power on it too though. It's definitely doing something. They're pretty much identical at the moment. Let's try and pull that one out instead. Okay, what else could I do? Right, let's hit this. Compiling. Right, the preview's looking much better, so now that's interesting, because what that will mean is that we're actually using the landscape blend to actually affect back, like, so the shape of the what material it's using back to the color. So if I go with that, let's go with that. Not feeding it there. So using that one. Got this multiply. That could be a factor too, because I'd be multiplying it and then I don't really need that one plugging in through there anymore. So I take that alpha mask out. We're not going to use that one anymore. We're just going to use the emissive. I've just realised one of the pop-up windows for Unreal, which is this one here, when it's created as its own little window, it doesn't actually come through. Alright, so scales off, I feel. Let's just pop into it. Alpha mask. We're not getting that at all. That does something, but yeah, we're not getting the blends happening anymore, so that's not great. Which comes back to our rock layer. We're looping it in, but then we're not using it for the multiplier. Black, we don't want black. Now, I could have just had some fundamental poor linking happening there. So, we're getting a preview that actually looks more like what we'd expect. Never mind the places where it's purple. Now, minimum blend. Sorry, maximum blend, we don't want it to be full, we want it more like that. I don't think we're using these other ones at all. Just a few. Yeah, we don't have the Stratify Alpha coming in. But I think what's clear is you're not really seeing it alter much. So I want that to sort of be independent of what the rock layers are blending like. So I don't want it to be that the rock layer or the rock part of the layer controls what color it is. I do want it to be using this one. So where are we taking that? So let's try pull the alpha back in from there. I wasn't actually using that one at all. That's just a straight multiply. I see. Yeah, that makes sense now. We're using that one technically. Let's see. Not really using this one anymore. Are we meant to be multiplying that? Probably not. Oh, we're seeing a washout of colours, I think, because of that. I mean, we could use both and then get some lightness and darkness, and yeah, because now we're back to that. Missing the brightness, I think. Alright. So what we were saying is when it's the black or 0, we'll use the original, otherwise we'll use what the multiplied version of that is. Multiply is fine, and we're looping between the two, so we get that blend happening that way, so it just tints according to that. We are using the color masks that's here, so I'll just throw multiply in, have a preview. Still an issue there though. Because for some reason the bass noise layer looks great like that. So that's great. That's what I would want it to look like. What have I got wrong? Is it as simple as this? No, but that's not taking into account that, so... check the power. That's definitely stronger. I think the scaling's part of it too. Not there. Don't necessarily want it to be according to that. Let's skip that one. Get the scalar bands in. So we are sort of coming in after it's supplied a lot of these things, so might be in our preview we don't get that because we're using different scaling settings. Can I rescale without having to recalculate? I'm not sure. The compiler thing's getting higher too. So it is going back and forth a lot. So we're using the Stratify Alpha, but it's not there at the moment, so don't know. Say that a lot, I think. Noise Alpha, Stratify Alpha Power. It's not alphabetical. Okay, we don't have that there for some reason. So I think something's... Maybe it's this one. There it is. No. I feel like that's actually making an effect. It's mostly white. No, white is not right. It's mostly black, I think. Because that's so very subtle. Which is okay. I mean, I'm just not seeing it. So at the moment I'm running with the Twitch FM indie playlists. It's a bit different. I might just skip ahead though. That's a bit more lively. Very much less I'm going to put a shotgun in my mouth stuff, which is, you know, good. Or at least do it smiling. I'm gonna try experiment with the bands a little bit just for a sec. the bands set to 0.1. For the stratifier, set to 1. 0.1. I always have trouble a bit with the scale on these. That's a bit more like it. The problem is once you start modifying the scale, the cut-in lines, and they don't look so great. Alright. So I've just changed the scale that some things are happening at. Try the same again with the stratifier layers. So there we're getting more of a blend between the different colours. that's nice. That's also nice. That's 0.7. So we actually get a blend between the green and the red there. Just see if we can't. So I'm not seeing much difference on the alpha power. So I have to modify that, but this is the setting I'm running with, so don't really see much of what it does there, but pumped up these divisors, pumped up those ones, they're not uniform, changed some of the thickness, band count, sharpness. Now that's why we've got this like this. So, as you know, my favourite part of this is I can just go, okay, cut into the landscape and get it green where I want it green, red where I want it red, even yellow or this blue colour. So immediately there's more variation. But that's also why I want that coloration to be blended based on noise. So still want to fix that. And you know, what else am I going to do? That's what we're here for, right? So alright. Bass noise. Right, so we've got that. Let's go with our bass noise, and while that's running, let's see how this works. If we just use the original lamp values based on this, so I'm just gonna create 3 more params. Let's recopy those, I think. Sorry, less typing required. And ooh. Yeah, that's fine. That was the power. Alright, and that'll be a 4, because that's what we were running with. It always changes on the instance. Do want to see just if we get any closer. So, go with the bright green, and I go with the light blue. And I use the emissive because it's nice. What else is that going to tell me? Yes, of course it is, because this is independent. I might just actually make it not so bright so I can actually hopefully see some of the underlying. There's no underlying color because I'm using the noise one, so no, not important. Rebuild and see how we go. Okay, I see blue, I see no green. And again, that's our problem. Which means we've got a 1 value coming out. If I have a look. It's virtually white. If I do this one. Gosh, that's far more interesting, right? Right. So, bass noise, what are you doing to me? Alpha mask. I mean, I hope that's not a special name that's throwing things out. Minimum set to 0, maximum set to 1. I haven't got those linked backwards, have I? Oh. Okay. Break that first. Give that a go. See how that goes. Is my clamp wrong? Doesn't seem like it should be wrong. It's the minimum. It literally seems like that is clamping on a minimum of 1. Is that a bug? Maybe? Wait, I can't see what's wrong with it. It's not using its W. Right. W is going to be the alpha, but I feel like it's not working right, and I'm just going to try it without the min-max. Let's clamp it regularly. Why not just... No, we don't want that. We do want it clamps. It's alright. I'll try it without and see how we go. So, never mind these two. Clamp it after the fact, I guess. It's just, you know, not ideal. It'd be much better to have the bass noise contain that sort of clamping. But if it's not going to work, if it's going to incorrectly clamp it, then what can you do? Right, saving away. Just waiting on to save, etc. Like, it is seeming like it's a bug, but I am also prone to making very simple mistakes through, you know... Didn't I change this one too? Did I change this? I don't know. Right, got your bass noise. See, that's more like what I would expect. But somehow, with the clamp, it just breaks. It doesn't work. It doesn't clamp it. So I don't know what's happening with that. Is it clamping before? It's just doing something completely wrong. Well, that's frustrating. So that one's fine. I could reuse the same ones, I guess. I don't really want to do that though. Right, so I know these two work. The preview worked too. noise alpha min, noise alpha max. Alright, we go back to it. Break, 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 all broken. Alright. And what's he gonna do? That's more like it. This noise. Cool. That's much more like it. I mean, it's not very dark. If I might have to ramp that up, in fact. Okay, that's too strong. Ah. I feel like maybe I meant to be adding 0.5 before I start powering. That way I can ensure that we're either going above or below. That sounds familiar. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to do an add. So the logic there is to say, okay, adding 1, that would be wrong. Alright, but that's probably just lagging a bit behind. I feel like that can't be live. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So the idea being, if it's over the halfway point, then we're more likely to go white. If we're under, we're more likely to go dark. Of course, now it's... It can't be white like that. It's clamped. It's too bright. That's too bright. Ugh, has it done it again? Let's just pop these out again. Not sure about that. Hello, another new follower. It's always a bit hard to see. I don't have my preview quite big enough. That's Lucky Clucky has followed. Welcome to my stream of strangely working and not working material functions. Now, if I added the 0.5, I mean, maybe we could just add a 0.2 instead. Don't know. Oh, right, I can see it there. Cool. Looks fine like this. Are we not live with it? That one's fine. Alright, I'm just nudging it just by 0.25 instead. I feel like that one's not moving properly. If I set this to 16, we should see it change somewhat. A bit slower, but yeah, that's alright. If we change it down to 2, we should see it a bit different again. More whites. 4 is about a halfway point. It just works. Try to plug them back in. Okay, they're preset to 0 and 1. Preview on the alpha mask side is fine. Oh gosh, it's this depressing song again. At least got our darkness happening there. It's not just bright. So, you know, that's something. It's good. Now, they are partly derived from the same area, but... Alright, let's have a look at this one now. Is this any better? That's better. So this is our normal bass noise, and that's our alpha mask. So they're different. They mirror some of the same shapes, but what that means is we should get some decent blending. Right, so that's using the emissive color. Okay, so that's good. So it doesn't necessarily follow the same patterns exactly, but it does mix here and there. So let's try it with... Okay, that's going to be missing, is it? Right, so we're going to fix up some of these links that got broken. Alpha mins and maxes are back in. Save that. Right, so we got that one fine. This one's fine. That one doesn't need changing. Let's fix up the test in case that one's not being... Yeah, that one needs fixing. This is bass. Not that I'm using this test one at the moment. Bass alpha min. Get the max in. That's set to 1. That's set to 4. So, how is everyone Saturday? It's a quiet day at the moment. It's sort of nice to do a little bit of dev while the sun's out. It's nice blue skies here. Bit of wind. A bit warm considering we are still in the midst of winter. But it's a nice 20 degrees at the moment, so not too bad. Alright, so never mind, we're not really using this one so much. Just want to make sure it was fixed. Okay, we've got our smart landscape, and now we're going to pull that one in with the instance and see how we're looking now. So what I'm hoping to see is some color variation, so in terms of what strength is applied. Yeah, you can see, if I were to say, wait, that's a bit odd, or that's a shadow. Okay, shadow's fine. I was a bit concerned for a second. Now, what I want to see on this, let's just go back to defaults. Almost defaults. I want to keep the red there. So we should really see it get stronger in places on the same area. So the other way we could do it is to multiply Let's have a look at the rock layer again. We are multiplying those two together. Maybe it doesn't multiply at this level now. We were unfortunately having some issues before. So if I pull that in, yay, compiling. pull this alpha mask in so I can see it through there. Does it know what to do with that? Yeah, it knows how to... Okay, cool. So what we'll just see here is if we've got spots where the red gets darker. It's kind of hard to see, to be honest. Let's set some glow, that'll always help. I know what I can do. If I set them all to red, we're gonna technically be getting red all over, but we should also see variation in colour of how strong that red is because of the alpha blend, so that should tell us. I don't think we're getting it. And maybe it's something we need the actual material to be different. Ah, so we've actually got an alt rock texture of black at the moment, so that's not helping either. So what I can do is set this one. That's cool. Not what we want. Let's see if this is just white or one of those snow ones might help. White grid, yeah, white grid's good because then we. I don't think we're seeing that variation that we want at all. Let's try it just from the base color instead. Let's just really see if we've got the right things in the right place. Is that changing? I don't know. I can't tell. If we change it to a purple in a spot, the variations there, so that's nice, but we're just not getting it. So what's our alpha doing? 6. Aha! That can't have helped. So my Stratify Alpha setting on the material instance was still set to pretty broad. Now I don't feel like we're seeing it at all. Again. annoying because even though it's... Okay, I'll try a different colour. Because even though it's uniform with terms of what colour we've got here, we're not actually trying to do it uniform. So we want both the colour variation and the landscape change to all sort of be working together. So, okay, at the moment we've got 0 there. Let's set the noise. Wait, that was the noise max. Ah, wrong way around. That might be it. Please. Okay, perfect. So that's what I want. So you can see that's actually independent of the colours. What it means, if we were to bring in one of the other colours, so let's just change this to just blue. They kind of follow the same line at the moment, but it's not exact either. Would be nice to see it sort of shown together. Oh, well, if that's the case, let's try and multiply at this level now. Cool, so there you can see, in some places the blue is much darker, in others it's light. It's all over the place. That immediately creates some sort of variation there, so things become a bit more interesting. So you're not just looking at dark blue in places, or blue at all. In fact, some places here you can see that there's seemingly not much happening in terms of changes to the colour. So I start pulling these back to different colours. Yeah, let's go with the red. I'll set the other one. Oh, I should have set one to green. Okay, so that can stay green. Let's set this one to yellow. Change to use an actual rock texture, 2 of them in fact. I think there's a slate one around. Cave rock. Now, I do have some that I found. I might just go with the default Unreal ones. You see, that's interesting already. Both of these are grayscale, so that's the D for detail, I assume. That's a diffuse, what am I talking about? That's smooth granite's nice though. So I'm using the basalt, but don't think it really is that great. Of course, I'm viewing it there with the alpha there. So I set that to. Are you gonna? There, so that's what it would really look like when I'm not using the alpha, so that's cool. So that's an interesting texture because I could obviously use the alpha as something, but let's go with that. So yeah, look at that. Got some variations. Again, let's do a cut in. Make it stronger and bigger. In some cases they've got the blue, got the green, can we get the red, we've got the yellow, what about the red? Red's a bit harder to get. It could be our instance, not allowing it. So if I set these incline levels to higher, can we get the red? There's a bit of red, there we go, it's barely, there we go, there's more, so we've still got green, sorry, we've still got blue, still got yellow, green, yeah we can still get green, so cool, we can get all the colours. If we pop back to say just default colours, there's some basic random colours, there's these ones here, nothing too interesting. That doesn't really do it. It's not quite interesting enough. So I'm just going to pop these colours out for a sec, pop the window. I'm going to be changing the instance colour, so our blues. Blues handy, we want a different sort of level of blue. We want it darker. Let's do it like greyish. For our yellow, there's a lot of that, so that's almost like a base colour. Which is also just because of the level that we're at, so I just want to just confirm that we can get rid of some of that yellow if we need to. A little bit. It's still quite prevalent. Up the size. Just try cut in. That's a clay brush, I don't want that. Let's get the flan. So yellow is always going to be prevalent. So with that in mind, we want something probably a bit more muted. I like the idea of an orange, almost not brown, but that's a cool colour. It's brown but orangey and, you know, mixes well with the blue. For the red, it's more like an accent colour, it's in places. Try a few different options. A dark colour, it's basically a slightly bluish grey. If there's a that's quite interesting. Go closer so we can see how that looks. We're not really going for a green. Don't want purple. Not for this one. So it's like a bit of a grey. Let's create a few streaks here and there. Last we've got this green. Now that seems to be... That's where yellow was coming from, isn't it? Was the yellow? Or we just happen to be at the green. Yeah, so we're not really on green. And we don't want green at all. So a sandy colour, sandstone. And there we go. I'll try flatten a little bit, or smooth a bit actually. Make the brush a bit bigger. This is a pretty nasty landscape, to be honest. Just threw bits and pieces here and there. See how I went with it, just to really get some variation in. And it was mostly just so I could start doing tests with the landscape materials. Because seriously, look at it. There might be valid reasons to have a landscape look like that. I like smoothing it out a little bit and then later doing the cut-ins with other things. So look at that, we've got places where it's purplish, places where it's orangish, light, white, just different things altogether. I feel like that could be darker though, so let's just pop in again. So these are the colours I ended up with, but what's causing that? Is it our blend? Is it our noise? I don't know. So that's over 0. Okay, it's just changing where that is. Where's our alpha power? Oh, we got that to 2.1, do we? Interesting. So I was saying we actually don't want it to keep the default rock texture very often. If I pop it, sorry, I was changing, where is it, alpha min, so that's all that, and it just becomes very colourful. But I like the idea of it not being completely like that. So let's go 7. 7. That's alright. There's enough of it. So what we've done here, instead of having a monster landscape texture that has 7 layers, we've taken 2 of those layers and put them into one thing through a cool bass noise that we're using twice. That's probably still sort of computationally expensive, but we're not going to get the situation which I had before where we have 7 layers on the one landscape, not including any foliage or dirt, any foliage or grass types coming through. And that was using a weight blend to start with, and that's messy, that's so messy. But this, not just that, this is so reusable. I can basically steal this for every project I do from now on. I obviously will, if I do that, I'm obviously going to mess with it until the point I have to re-optimize it, because that's what I do. But it's kind of cool. Now I can actually go, okay, we've got our mountains here, cut in, that's a bit too strong I think. I can't remember if I want the noise scale high or low. want the strength lower, I think. What I like about this is it's no longer just like, it's no longer just doing it based on the height, but you get that sort of variation there too. So if I start doing a slope in there, so we're at the flatten with the slope value. Because it does do that part where it adjusts it based on the X and Y as well, so wherever the landscape is, I just get a lot more variation happening. It tends to not just follow the height, it follows the grooves a bit more. At the moment, actually, I might have that divisor set quite low, so what do we have to do for that? You can see it, yeah. It's cutting in partly because of that, but it's also quite inconsistently adjusting the thickness. So I might just, yeah, pop into the instance again. And if I'm going to do the instance, I should be looking at what my real setting is for that. So my divisors, it's the smoother. It's the incline smoother I need to change. Divisors are fine. That's just doing a very gradual. So I've got 25,000 and the smoother is 500. I'm going to try first up 250 as the smoother. No different, I can see. No different. I'll put it back to 500. I'm going to try a different plane X. So I'm going to set, instead of 25,000, I might set it to 10,000. There we see a difference. I'll put that back. I'll set the plane divisor Y to 10,000 as well. So right, so that's affecting the blend of the materials. That's cool. So now I've got that sort of happening independently. That's nice. I actually quite like that. So what I want to do now is go to the X and Y for the stratify layer and see what that does. So I've got here, I've got 7,500 and 2,500 as my options. So I've got my smoother also set to 1024. That's probably high, but I think that was to stop it having so many stratify layers, so I'm going to try a few different settings. So let's try 512 on the smoother. If it goes at 2, I think it's just 2 is just alternating so quickly you don't actually see it blend. Yeah, look at that. That's some hefty detail there. We don't want it like that. So that was for 2. If I set to 16, see more of it, but nothing stands out from a distance. It's good close up, but I don't want to go down the road of having that across larger. So set 256, so we're a quarter of what we were. That's nice and sweepy. There's places where it's varied, goes up and down. Looks like someone's signature there. So you get some cool variation happening. Now, unstratified plane is set to 2,500 for Y. Let's try 1,000. I'll put it back and see how that goes. That's 25, 50, 100, 200, 500, try 10,000. Problem with the high numbers is you don't get as much up and down jitter. Although is that because of the incline smoother? It might be. The balancing act. That's 128 as the smoother. Go back to our old setting. Put offset. Don't really need. Oh. Okay, I just cleared off the offset divisor, which. It steps. Yeah, it's 20. Let's try 5,000 as our X divisor. Let's try a big number, 25,000. That's 50,000. Let's change it. Oh, sorry, that was the noise scale. So I'll keep that the same. So that's. So you can see over this there. It's very shaky when it's 5,000. Still pretty shaky. It's still stepping up. I'd say one looks noticeably better than the other. 500. Back to the 75. Yeah, to be honest, it's not that one's any better than the other. The main thing is none of this is straight. It looks varied. And some of those masks could feedback as well. So I'll keep that as it is. I mean, I could easily plug. I go back to check the rock layer first. Right, we are outputting the mask that we're using. That's good. Yeah, we'll keep that as it is. We'll keep that one. If I go to the actual landscape that we're using, so not the smart landscape instance, but the actual one. So I could actually go, okay, let's times that by specular. We'll increase it a bit. And this is one of the other reasons why I want to use the alpha mask as well in as an output for other things. I pop into here. Kind of hard to see, so let's make it not so rough so we can actually see where it's shiny. We could even ramp that up to a full 1, so we're just getting the full layer mask, but this 0.5 is fine, especially if there's no roughness. So let's just hit a play. That's very glossy. Wow. Oh. Is it noticeably varied? Not really. I think it would be. Nice little wet texture though. Very polished. What if we plug that into the roughness too? We'll do a 1 minus. Yeah, let's jump into it while we're waiting. Very shiny. Definitely more like a polish. But from a distance it does kind of look like wetness. Those reflections, how nice. Look at that as well. So just like that. One material to get that colour banding, some glossiness. I mean, the glossiness is nothing special, that's easy. You saw that. Color streaking, variation, it's all the one material. And I just especially love the fact I can go, okay, go to out there. Yes, I'm going to do another cut in. You know, it's what I do. Come on. Not that way. Not that way. Ah, slope value. Alright, so here we go. Cut in. Look at that. How nice. A red cut in if we need it. A white cut in. The other slightly white cut in. Now, because that's just for show, I'm just going to drop the spec down to 0.2, and I'm going to times that by 0.7, which can be our roughness. Plug it in, so it's inversely proportionate. Don't necessarily need to do it that way either. I think we could have actually done is go, let's break that out into 4 components. Let's say if it's greeny, which means it's more likely to have a bit of yellow in it, then we'll be more specular. If it's blue, it's more likely to be rough. We don't need to use the noise mask. Set it like this. Oh wait, I just want to use the base color. Now, obviously I could have made that actually alpha mask come out as coloured as well, undo that sort of thing, but hey, this is kind of cool too. This is a very cheap way to do it. That we say, okay, maybe redness is going to be the height, because it's more likely to be. So here we go. So saying when it's blue, it's more rough. And it also means as it's approaching whiteness, it also gets more glossy too. That's a little bit glossy. And just to compare, because, you know, comparisons are cool. Don't worry about this error. What we'll do is take a little screenshot like this. And then I'm going to just do a comparison and pull in the smart test, which is using some things. Now, what's interesting about this is this one's much more intense. And it's not, just looking at it, it's not too much better. Never mind the fact that the color choices at the moment, so if I go streaks, I try to change it more to muted colors. Not sure if we're actually getting, but the colors are there, and don't forget, for this alternate one, it's actually a lot more intense. It's got a lot more happening with it, so I'm just gonna set something that's vaguely similar. That'll do. Won't have the exact same streaking happening. This is the same landscape, so you can sort of see it. It's in places, but it's changing our base colors a bit more. It's not quite the same. This looks a little bit washed out, trying to recreate those same colours. Now, yeah, it's in ways it's nicer. Some things are nicer about it, like this actually has running normal maps, it's got height maps in here. So it is doing some stuff. So it's heaps more detail happening. But I don't know. Just eject for a second, pull that in. So this is the one that uses the existing core functions that I've got for material, and then I'll pull in the smart landscape, that's our new one. I can't do it on the fly. Let's do it can tell which one looks more interesting. Now I don't think it's just the colour choices, it's also, you can see the banding compared between them. This banding does zigzag up a lot more, but it's very thin in parts. It's not really noticeable too much there. This feels more like it's rock. Anyway, I think that seems like a good time to stop. Thank you for watching, if you've watched. Thank you for following, to Commander Root and Lucky Clucky. Much appreciated, and I will also probably be back later tonight, possibly working on play some No Man's Sky. No fixed time as yet, but we'll see how we go. Alright, cheerio. I will talk to people later. Thank you.